dear audience, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about finance and spirituality. A very interesting subject for you entrepreneurs who probably will have to pay attention to what we often qualify for exceptional. In view of the layers of information I want to give you, I beg you to stay with me until the end. Its layers is explained by the response it brings in case of confused situation at the time of financial analysis, often judged of exceptional wrongly. A free affirmation, dangerous conviction in the sense that it leads to the disastrous decisions by the managers, decision makers, because they have made erroneous conclusions related to the fact that situations deemed from exceptional have reasons outside the field of financial analysis, despite the proven experiences of the innocent craftsmen. Nothing is suspected as deep reasons. Please lend me attentive ears to dive together our eyes in these cases, after which we will see our limits in the case of financial analysis and find the need to integrate a great well we exercise at the breeding of the mind through popular and spiritual therapy in order to live fully, being useful to God and the nations. Reasons why we are created. Case number 1, where I was a stakeholder, where I was still lucky to seize the opportunity to deepen my understanding of the world of finance. Case that is enigmatic as the other that I'm going to tell you quickly. The story was happening in a plot of 9 houses where the 2 families came into conflict. I would like to emphasize that the persecuted family was fallen. More precisely, a wealthier woman mobilized against another of small conditions. Among the tenants of the plot, another woman quarrels at the aggressor while the rest is neutral, being obvious witness of what was happening and being close enough to the persecuted family. After analyzing the situation, I suggested the family to move. As the family was Christian, they prayed to know if they have to move or not. Fortunately, their God listened to them and they cried that they did not have to move, but rather that He chased out those who persecuted them. They told me, as I have already seen that the prediction of the persecuted family often happened, I believed in them. Just after, the wind of poverty began to blow in the family whose woman is aggressor. Poverty invasion had happened exactly how. The scene lasted almost 10 months. Without any warning, the husband of the last woman was driven out of work, and soon after, troubles within the couple of 3 children arose. Kids of whom one is a student who found himself in a situation that compelled him to give up the school. In the couple, the troubles reached a level where sometimes the husband was pounding the woman and the neighbors intervened. The woman admitted that she's astonished at the sudden change in her husband, who was previously peaceful. As the husband was driven out of his work, he started his own business, opening a restaurant, but could not hold. All the sources of income were blocked, and they were brutally driven out the house they rented 9 months after the loss of employment. At the moment when even the business undertaken fares miserably. Since that time, I do not have news of the family that moved miserably to I do not know well. Not well. When someone stands against God for his inadequate behaviors, that directly affect God's interests that one exposes himself to with. Now, it's the land of the woman who had supported the first, already kicked out by God as its promise given to the persecuted woman, that God was going to intervene by driving the wicked women out of the plot. Then, few days after the departure of the first woman, the most aggressor, now under the yoke of the poverty by which God had used to drive her out of the plot, the capricious woman had found herself constrained to move unwillingly. Unexpectedly, without consulting her wife, her husband went to get a house for rent and had paid it immediately. Of course, you understand that the woman did have no other choice rather than to live with her husband, for living in the newly rented house. As cohabitation was not good within the couple, the woman and the husband had ended up separating despite the 3 children shared that were all in primary school. Finally, the persecuted woman was definitively secured at the price paid, expensive by those who persecuted her. Now, before drawing the conclusion, let me tell you the second case, clarifying how the businessman had attracted the accuse against his business and how he got rid of it to preserve his film of bankruptcy. This case concerns a pious pastor, a madman subscribed to the very flourishing restaurant. It was the pastor who contacted the owner of the restaurant and told him, every time you see the crazy man near your restaurant, call him and give him to eat and to drink. And at each end of the month, you will present the invoice for payment. The owner of the restaurant presented the invoice after the first month and got paid. The following month, it was the same, and so on, being paid without problem. The owner of the restaurant that had already found that the pastor paid without hesitation, and that only the confidence was counting, because there were no means of verifying whether the amount of the invoice payable by the pastor was increased or not. Then he has started cheating by increasing the amount of the invoice in his favor. Something unexpected happened just at the beginning of the establishment of a fraudulent invoice, first one to charge the pastor. Suddenly, the customers diminished considerably and progressively. The food remained in large quantities due to the decrease in orders, and losses more and more important were recorded. The owner of the restaurant, noting the brutal fall of the sales, without wasting time, he had fought automatically at the fraudulent invoice he had presented to the pastor for payment. Then he had two choices in front of him: either to be humble, repent of his fraud to the pastor, to save his enterprise of bankruptcy, or to be stubborn and not listening to the voice that accused him at the bottom of his heart and exposed him to divine anger, leading to the fall of his enterprise. Fortunately, he was divinely inspired and made a wise choice. He opted to go to denounce himself about the fraud made during the invoicing of the food granted to the madman at the expense of the pastor, and ask for forgiveness to him. He went there and did so. The pastor had forgiven him and prayed for him and his restaurant, and the situation of his business returned to normal and flourished as before. Dear audience, I want to put a particular emphasis on this. The two cases that I just exposed have in no way convinced us of taking the immediate punishment of a sinner as a law. Spiritually, there are those who will be accompanied by their sins, the eternal unhappy, and those whose sins will alive before them, among whom there are the happy and unfortunate eternal. This is the subject developed deeply and widely in the course I have initiated and baptized under the name of Popular and Spiritual Therapy, to expand our panel of necessary knowledge to understand the essentials of the spiritual, political, economical, and social world, and find the need to serve royally God and humanity. Okay, let's conclude on two cases above. Without a doubt, in the first case, you have found that the cause of the closure of the two sources of income, layoff at work and restaurant closing, was a means that God used to drive the family out from the plot, as predicted by the unjustly mistreated woman. So, the cause of the financial instability was spiritual, and in this case, the field of study is outside of financial analysis. It's easy to qualify the situation as exceptional while it's false. The first case shows us the businessman and the employee who failed definitively because of the spiritual reason without thinking about it. Whereas in the second case, the businessman, the owner of the restaurant, had the reflex to go beyond the financial analysis field by thinking about the spiritual cause as a reason of brutal fall of the number of customers of his restaurant. And by asking for forgiveness for the stolen money from the pastor, the situation returned to normal. Very briefly, be honest, especially in your business, for preserving you from cases whose consequences are dramatic and complex. And in general, be interested in spirituality. It's the cornerstone of everything in bad or good once it's deeply lived. For you, I suggest you the spirituality leading you to good. Be often with me on Leader's channel to accompany one another in this journey of understanding this world that God has given us to improve and be rewarded accordingly. I don't doubt, like Blaise Pascal, philosopher and scientist of France in 17th century, questioned himself if we have to understand the world literally or spiritually. You also will do it once you choose to pay the price of being often with me. The question of Pascal Blaise is number 555 in his book titled Pensée Pascal. In English, Thought of Pascal. Thank you very much for being with me till the end, among the way of supporting me and not missing one of my videos. Please subscribe, like, share and comment. See you next.